Hello and welcome to Fresh Perspectives. My name is Gail, and my guest today is Cara Seekings. Thank you for agreeing to come on today, Cara.
Always my pleasure, Gail. Thank you.
Let's see, you have a message to put out for your class, right?
I do. Gail and I say good morning.
Oh yeah, good morning.
To everybody out there, but particularly to my pharmacology women from BOCES Erie 2 program.
Oh, okay. Yeah, hi there. It's nice to meet you. Maybe I'll get to meet you in person sometime. That would be fun. Okay, now, Cara and I are not as dressed up as we usually are. We're wearing t-shirts today, and the reason we're wearing t-shirts is because the t-shirts we're wearing say something. And my t-shirt, and this is the reason I even bought it, I found it in an arts and crafts show last summer. The reason I bought it is because of what it said. It says, when women support each other, incredible things happen. And Cara has one on that says, vintage feminist, noun, knows more than she says and notices more than you realize. So anyways, that is why we're wearing these t-shirts, and there is something we want to address because it is so controversial. And today we're doing this program on January 22nd, 2022. And today is, the day that we're recording this, is the 49th anniversary of Roe v. Wade. And we're hoping to help those of people understand what the problem is, right, Cara?
Absolutely.
It's there's a Beatles song, live and let live. So let other people live their own lives and we will live ours. And
we were just saying before we came on that if each of us used our energy to run our own life and kept our nose out of everybody else's, what a much more successful and happy population we would be.
Yeah, you know, I remember after my mother died, it seemed like I couldn't see anybody when I was out in public that knew me that didn't ask what we were going to do with her property. You know, it was like, they didn't really need to know. We had plans. It wasn't for sale, but people kept asking, and I'm not sure why, but they kept asking. I've never asked anybody anything like that.
It always strikes me that sometimes before our mouth opens, our brain should engage in, I need this for what?
Or
why am I asking this?
Or is this appropriate to ask this person this question?
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I realized that some people people have different sides to the whole story, and I'm wondering if we should address the newspaper clippings that I brought in first.
I think we should.
Okay.
I think we should.
Now, back in October, I ran across this Doonesbury comic strip, and it just happens to have to do with women's reproductive rights. It is a cartoon strip, and it's a radio announcer getting ready to interview somebody, a caller on the phone, I think. So anyway, I'm going to put this down where I can see it. And the radio announcer says, okay, next up is Texas bounty hunter Karen White. Thanks for joining us, Karen. And the caller says, no problem, Mark. And so the announcer says, so tell me, what's the new Texas bounty law all about? And she says, well, Mark, basically it deputizes private citizens to sue anyone who enables an abortion. By the way, I might say bleep. I might have to bleep a word that's in the comic strip. The bounty is sweet, $10,000 a head. Already I've dimed out 3 of my neighbors, 2 nurses, and an Uber driver. I've also got a lead on an incest rape victim. If someone tries to help her, I'm all set to sue their bleep. Legal vigilantism is the best side hustle ever, Mark. I'm looking to clear $100,000 by December. And the radio announcer goes, hold a sec, okay, Karen? I need a quick word with my producer. And he turns to his producer and says, what country is this? And the producer says, I was going to ask you, want me to check? Because they're realizing that this just doesn't sound like something that would happen in the United States of America.
Except that
it
is something that's happening in the
is.
United States.
And, you know, seriously, I'm a bit worried about this because once one right is taken away from women, what right is going to be the next one to be taken away? Are we going to lose our right to vote again?
What will stop it from exploding into actually terrorism for women? Again, Gail, I have never wanted to be better than anyone else. But I have my entire life wanted equity. And if you start legislating rules about me, I don't have equity anymore. We already know in New York State, I make 88 cents on the dollar compared to a man. Now that in general, we already know that there are many things that women are excluded from. Now I'm not blaming men, it's not their fault either. There are many men who are feminists, who are very supportive of the women in their lives, etc. But as a society, we still, you know that I have portrayed Marion Skidmore many times in reenactment.
Right.
And Marion Skidmore was the founder of the Library of Lilydale, for one thing, but also was a suffragette and a woman of honor and integrity long before that was permitted. So, of course, that made her a bossy bag as well. But I think we have to remember that if we don't stand for women, who can we expect to stand for women?
Right,
You know,
exactly.
if it doesn't matter to me, why should it matter to any other woman? Women like Susan B. Anthony, women like Elizabeth Cady Stanton, women who gave up so that I might vote, so that I might have my, and by the way, I got the vote because I'm white, because in 1920 it became the law, but not for all women.
Now there are people in high places right now that are wanting to interfere with voter rights. Have you heard anything about that on the news
That's
lately?
so frightening. When you, again, I understand and believe that for the betterment of the country and the greater good, we have to legislate laws. We're not good about self-regulation, but we have to legislate laws that protect the equity of every sentient being.
Human being, yes.
We can't just, and if we start eliminating voting rights, what happens again? Sooner or later, am I going to be too old to vote? You know, I'm pretty honest about being 73, but 73 is not 20.
I'm going to be 73 in September.
And so are we going to be too old to vote, Gail? Are we going to, I mean, is that the next thing to go?
Oh, to take the right to vote away from
The elderly,
senior citizens.
yeah, or How about single moms? Will they lose the right to vote because they're single moms? Those kind of things, you know, you and I are in an age cohort where we may have lost friends to backyard abortion. I certainly did. And I think it's interesting when I hear people espouse their views on abortion, and you ask them the question, how many women do you believe died from illegal abortion? From coat hangers, knitting needles. Horrible stories, who not only lost the child, but their life. Or perhaps lost all their reproductive rights for the future because of damage.
Exactly.
I think when I hear people expound, I want to say, wait, how many women do you believe died?
Well, they don't know.
And it kind of sometimes gives me the feeling that they also don't care, because they are so focused in on the issue of fetal life. I'm not debating whether abortion is right, wrong, or indifferent, okay? I am not. You're entitled to your beliefs, but I want the right of choice.
Right, exactly. I don't believe that people should be running each other's lives for them.
In which case, if we should, Gail, I'll take your checkbook and take care of paying your bills from now on. Because that's the only, you don't want me to do that, but that's the only possible reason that I could run your life.
Yeah.
If I'm paying your bills, then I'm running your life. But if not, perhaps I ought to back off.
Well, you know, I had to take care of, during the last few years of my mother's life, I had to take care of paying all her bills and everything, because she'd had a stroke and she wasn't able to take care of anything for herself anymore. So I had to do it, but that was the only reason I did it. Well, sometimes, you know, if a loved one can't do things for themselves, you have to, but
then you're not violating their rights.
Right.
What you're doing is providing them a safe, secure environment with help. That's what you're doing. When you start taking away people's choices, you know, it would be like politically saying to me, who we all know is a member of the Women's Equality Party in New York State, probably your only token member in this county, but anyway, it would be like saying to me, okay, but then you can only vote for women's equality candidates.
oh, yeah.
That would take away all of my choices. I don't vote a straight anything.
Oh, exactly.
It
you
would
know.
be like saying each town can have two churches. One is
Yeah.
going to be this and one is going to be
Yeah,
this.
yeah, it's like I've always believed that you figure out what kind of person the person running for public office is. And if you feel in your heart that they can do the best job, then that is who you vote for. I mean, I have known so many people who always vote straight down the line of the party that
Oh,
they're
yes.
on,
Oh, yes.
without really, because the person that's running is the party they're registered as, they must be the right one. They must be a good person.
And they may well be a good person, but choice. Choice is what it's about. I'm not going to go, you know, I know, for example, that you're a vegetarian. You're a vegan.
I'm a
right?
vegan.
Okay. So I am not going to go out and say, now I tend to lean toward the pescatarian side. I like my fish, but I can skip everything else. But I'm not going to say to you, Gail, you have to start eating shrimp.
Ew.
Because
I am not going to do it.
and why? I mean, what right do I have to remove the essence of your choices? None. You must wear red.
Oh, no.
Well, but it's the same, it comes down to the same kind of thing. I really am very animated about choice. Personal responsibility and choice. Number one, if I'm responsible for myself, then I hope I continue to act in a moral and ethical manner. And if not, I hope someone calls me on it. But also, please, don't take away those things, choices. We have 800 TV channels because of choices.
It's pretty stupid, really, for a person to certain rights given to women, and then for 49 years, and then have it taken away.
Yeah, and it actually wasn't given. It was hard fought.
It was fought for. Yeah, I brought in this other newspaper clipping that I found more recently, and this woman's name is Sarah Weddington. And what's Sarah Weddington? She has recently died, and that's why she was in the newspaper. She was the attorney who successfully argued in favor of abortion rights at the time of Roe v. Wade. She was 26 years old when she won that. So anyways, I just wanted to show you guys that. I wonder if there's anything in here that I should read. She won, it was the Supreme Court ruling in 1973, cemented her place in history. Shall I just read through it real quick?
Yeah, sure,
Okay.
Go ahead.
I just see her role at that time as being so courageous, said Sarah Wheat, a spokeswoman for Planned Parenthood of Greater Texas. For all of us who work in what is, it can be a very challenging field. I feel like that's a lesson she has shared with me and so many others. Roe v. Wade changed the alignment of major political parties and helped define the playbook U.S. presidents, and listen very carefully, people, to how this is worded. Roe v. Wade changed the alignment of the major political parties and helped define the playbook U.S. presidents would have to follow to confirm their Supreme Court nominees, said Florida State University law professor Mary Ziegler, who specializes in the legal history of reproduction. And that means that presidents were supposed to choose open-minded people who would be willing to go along with the idea of people making their own decisions. Weddington was one important part of a bigger picture, Ziegler said. She was instrumental in reframing how abortion rights are understood. Prior to the Roe decision, the coalition in favor of abortion rights included family planning advocates, medical professionals concerned about the consequences of so-called back alley abortions, and groups that favored curbs on population growth. Roe validated the notion of a woman's right to have an abortion. The Supreme Court decided the right to privacy under the U.S. Constitution was broad enough to encompass a woman's decision whether or not to terminate her pregnancy. Justice Harry Blackmun, nominated by Republican President Richard Nixon, wrote in the 7-2 decision. Longtime women's rights lawyer Judy Waxman witnessed part of the Roe arguments. In framing the question as a matter of individual self-determination, Weddington really stood up for the rights of women to control their destiny, Waxman said. Some people said the issue is over now, and others said, no, it's just beginning, Waxman said. It was far from over. Abortion rights has since become one of the most divisive issues in American politics, and Weddington's death comes as it is again reaching a decisive point before the nation's highest court. The Supreme Court is considering a case over Mississippi's ban on abortions after 15 weeks of pregnancy that could undermine Roe and the court's 1992 ruling in Planned Parenthood v. Casey, which allows states to regulate but not ban abortion up until the point of fetal viability at roughly 24 weeks. A decision is not expected until spring. In Texas, a separate law that took effect in September has banned most abortions in the state, meaning some patients have traveled hundreds of miles to Louisiana, Oklahoma, and other states for the procedure.
I think one of the most important things in all of that, and I agree totally, but is the fact it's called abortion rights, not abortion insistence. Nobody is saying you have to have an abortion. In Roe v. Wade, no one is saying anyone has to make that choice. I had said when we were talking earlier, Gail, that as a nurse, my job is to present all sides of the options and to not color any of them anyway. I would never tell a patient or client what my choice would be. I would never tell them what their choice should be. But it's about choice. It's a right. It's the right to make the choice for yourself, not to have someone else make it for you. No, and I think that's vital, the right to make a choice. People are out constantly hollering about, how dare the government tell me I have to have a COVID shot?
I mean, really.
You know, and then, but it's perfectly okay for the government to tell me what I can and can't do otherwise? No. In a public health epidemic like COVID, my personal rights cease when it becomes a public health epidemic. Well, you know what? If we overturn Roe versus Wade or make terrible amendments in it, we're going to have another pandemic. It's going to be good women dying in back alleys and cheap hotels from illegal abortion. Choice.
But I believe that women in general don't really want to do it. They just find themselves in difficult situations where they don't see any other way out. I mean, some people are expecting a baby that basically is going to be so disabled that they're not going to have a good life, and the parents are not going to be able, it's going to be so expensive to take care of that child after they are born, because they just can't afford it.
Well, and not just dollar expensive. It is certainly very dollar expensive, but also emotionally expensive. And for some women who perhaps have another couple of kids, is it at the cost of those kids too? Because, you know, now mom is a caregiver full time.
She can't go and have a job and earn money to support them.
And she also can't give them time and attention because everything is geared toward this one child. And again, I think there are lots of other circumstances. I had mentioned earlier, if I were pregnant from a rape, as a person, I don't know that I could handle that, okay? I don't know. I've never been faced with that. So I can only supposition, but that might be something that might drive me to that choice or propel me to that choice. because I would never want to, perhaps I would have the child and put it up for adoption. There would always be that issue of that rape hanging over my head. So I don't know that I would be a good and effective parent. That's another consideration. But if we take abortion off the table, then I have no choice. Mm-hmm. I either adopt the child out, or I find myself with 20-some years in the rest of my life as an inadequate parent, mm-hmm. which isn't acceptable either. We have scores of kids being beaten and misused and abused and all of those terrible things because they are not well loved and wanted. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's scary.
I remember when I was very young, before Roe v. Wade, I remember it being on the news one time about this woman. She'd apparently gotten German measles.
What a terrible fear.
While she was pregnant, and she really didn't feel that it was a good idea to go through with the pregnancy, but because you couldn't get one in the United States, she and her husband flew to Europe, somewhere in Europe.
And that's another, again, this is a U.S. citizen mm-hmm. who shouldn't have to seek safe and appropriate health care outside the country.
Right, right.
Because she has no choice here. I really am very, very animated about this because I'm a firm believer that choices are mine. Yes, mm-hmm. Whatever your religious beliefs are, okay, mm-hmm. fine. Mm-hmm. But I was born with free will.
Right, exactly. We all were.
Absolutely. And
mm-hmm.
part of that free will is being responsible for my own decisions. The other part of it is accepting the consequences of those decisions. But that doesn't mean I should inflict those consequences forever on another being either. It means I have to make that decision. But if you take away my rights to make it, I have nothing.
Yeah. So.
And think of how many people, I mean, the Doonesbury cartoon is
priceless.
Funny. But yes, but think of how many people will be dropping a dime on their neighbor or on somebody they think might have, or how ridiculous that will be.
It just doesn't sound like something that would happen in the United States of America.
No. And again, I have grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Do I want my great-granddaughters not to have choices? No, it scares me to death. They'll be living in a police state.
Isn't that communism?
Well, I understand it's some ism. Okay. Yep. And I just...
Yeah, it is a scary thought. It really is. I mean, you and I are way, way past the age where we could get pregnant. So people are probably...
Thank you.
People are probably wondering why we're being so such activists about the whole subject. It's just that...
You don't stop being an activist because you age.
Right.
My beliefs are now for the women coming after me. Mm-hmm. And yeah, menopause and I are old friends long ago.
Oh yeah, me too.
But the women who are coming after me deserve the same equity of rights
that we enjoyed.
That I enjoyed.
Mm-hmm.
I also believe that they have more to accomplish than we did.
Yeah.
And hopefully it won't be 88 cents on a dollar anymore.
Yeah.
And by the way, New York City is not the worst state by any means for that business, for the inequity of pay.
Mm-hmm.
it will be career opportunities. You know, it will be, if a woman is a good basketball player,
She should be able to play basketball.
on the NBA, not the WNBA.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Well, to begin with, it's just people. People shouldn't be paying so much attention to what other people are doing. You know, I mean, I don't go around. I mean, there's a lot of things I think people shouldn't do, but just because it's bad for them and bad for the environment and all that, and I wish they could, wake up, but it's not like, I mean, so many times I've been in the grocery store and seen what people are buying, like cartfuls of soda pop and stuff like that that's really, really bad for them, but and I could say something, but they would just tell me to mind my own business.
As they should. Yeah. But by the same token, not everybody is as caring or as sensitive as you are to that kind of thing.
Yeah, I do. It does kind of bother me that people are ruining their health. By
it should, because you realize that in paying taxes, et cetera, you're helping to pay for their health. And, it makes me, I always say, Gail, there's something worse in the world than an ex-smoker, and I am an ex-smoker.
Are you really?
Yeah. 1990, I haven't had a cigarette since 1990.
That was a long time ago.
It is. So when I see someone light a cigarette, I'm like,
well,
because I know.
Well, when you're smoking, you are affecting anybody who is in close proximity to you at the time. When I was, most of my life, after I would come down with something like, let's say, strep throat or something like that, after like the sore throat part of it would clear up, I would cough for like 3 or 4 weeks afterwards.
Yeah.
And my father smoked around us when we were kids, and you couldn't go to a get-together with other families without some of the people being smoking. I mean, we were not allowed to smoke, although some kids would sneak around and do it, but supposedly we were not allowed to. But what the adults didn't realize at the time was because they were smoking around us, we were smoking.
Right.
No matter what, you're exposed to that smoke. So, but anyway, as the course of my life has gone on, even as an adult, I still would, for a long time, if I came down with a sore throat or something, it would wind up in a cough that would last for weeks. Well, anyway, somewhere along the line, I think it was an herbalist, filled me in on it has to do, if you didn't smoke yourself, it has to do with all the secondhand smoke.
You're inhaling the same chemicals from the smoke as if you were inhaling from the cigarette.
Right. So anyway, ever since it's been illegal, I don't know if it is in all the states, but it is in New York, now that you can't smoke in public places, I have not had that problem. I haven't even come down with anything in years.
Yep.
So every action has a reaction, and sometimes those reactions are affecting other people, not just you.
Well, and I think the other thing we think about with that is every action has an opposite and equal reaction.
Yes,
and
it's going to come back to bite you.
Well, yes, and not just you, as you just said. It's going to come back to bite everybody who's exposed. I just, again, do I think people should do damaging things? No, of course not. Do we all do them? Yes, of course. But taking away our choice. That would be like you and I standing at Walmart at the checkout saying, no, you can't have that. And yes, put that back. And no, that meat's too fatty. I mean,
You'd get thrown out of the store.
I would hope so. You know, I would hope someone would take me to task.
I do hope those of you in the viewing audience will try to take really good care of yourself, though. But
Absolutely.
I probably won't say anything to you in the grocery store unless I'm in a bad mood. You know, if for some reason I'm kind of having a moody kind of day, maybe something will come out of my mouth that shouldn't. Most of the time I try not to.
Yeah, I try to remind myself. I was meant to say this to you. Mm-hmm. I try to remind myself that if all of us read the book, The Four Agreements.
The Four Agreements.
It's a very short read written by Don Miguel Ruiz. If we followed those four agreements, we nor anyone else could expect anything more from us. Now, those four agreements are very simple. Number one is be impeccable with your word. If you say you're going to do it, do it. Mm-hmm. The second one is don't assume. Mm-hmm. I don't know what really is happening in someone else's life, and my words of wisdom may not be the least bit helpful. So perhaps I should wait until I'm asked. Number three is don't take anything personally. Generally, it is not about us, no matter what. It's about the other person. Mm-hmm. And when we take it personally, we make it about us. And the fourth is always do your best. Now, if we're busy honoring those four agreements, we don't have time to be nibbing in other people's stuff.
Yeah, lately, I didn't always remember to do it this way or not, but lately I've gotten to where if I say I'm going to do something, I'll do it. If those words have come out of my mouth, and when it comes down to it, quite often, well, I don't really feel like doing a certain thing. But since I put it out there in the universe, I'm going to do it. You know?
I will drag my broken, bloody, bruised body to do it if I say I will. Mm-hmm. It probably took me till I was at least maybe 50 to learn to say, thank you for asking me, but no. Mm-hmm. And to shush. Because the minute we start explaining our choice, you might as well just say yes, because you're gonna. Mm-hmm. But I'm sure it was 50 before I learned to say, wait a minute.
Well, you know, the course of a lifetime is a learning experience.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, you and I are in our 70s, and we're still learning stuff. And I learn stuff on purpose. I still study. I pick up books that I can learn. I've gotten, after I got into yoga in my late 20s and like that, I got to where I wasn't interested in reading fiction books anymore. Because I realized there were so many books out there on things that I could learn how to do things from. And it seems like I learn something new just about every day.
Well, and I try to be receptive to learning something new, because I really truly feel that if we stagnate, we die. Mm-hmm. Maybe not physically, but mentally, emotionally. This morning, Gail actually caught me in my car playing a word game.
Oh, is that what you were doing?
I was.
I thought you were texting somebody.
I know, I was playing a word game.
I pulled into the parking lot and got out of my car, and there's Cara sitting in her car fiddling with her phone, and she didn't even see me that I was arriving.
No, I didn't.
And I'm waving to her, and she's not even noticing, and finally I rap on the window, and then she goes, you know, because I startled her.
But, you know, I'm playing that word game because I have now worked myself to the point where I am solving puzzles, word game puzzles, that 0.17% of people who play can solve.
Only 17%?
Yes, of people who play can
Oh,
solve.
wow.
Now, I'm doing that, I call that my mental meditation. You know I'm a meditator, and so
Right.
every day I schedule, that's why I didn't come right in, because I was in my mental meditation time.
Well, it wasn't really quite time for us to start the program.
Well,
yet,
and I was
anyway.
using that time to keep my wits going. That's why I play that particular game. There are much more fun games, I'm sure, to play, but I do that so that I can still think, I can still spell, I started out, when I first played it, I was playing at the level 5% of people
Oh,
solved it.
oh.
I now play at a level where 0.175% of people play.
Oh, is
it.
that right?
Yeah. So, because I want to keep learning, I want to stay sharp. My body is probably going to go to heck in a handbasket, but that's okay. I at least want what's left of my wits about me. So one of the reasons, I said I teach the most boring things in the world, like pharmacology, but because it does help me stay sharper. And that's part of being able to self-determinate make choices. Years ago there was a Pogo cartoon that said, "We have met the enemy and it is us."
Some people are their own worst enemies.
Well, it is women who defeated the Equal Rights Amendment.
Oh, is it?
Yes, it is. The female vote failed to support it, and
Oh
it
my
lost.
gosh.
That's a very sad thing. Lots of times when my rule is you never argue with a fool. And so I will let someone tell me what they have to say. I'll gently try to deflect it. But when people do things and formulate their opinion without the facts, they're not making an informed decision. And of course, I've spent my whole professional career worried about people giving informed consent. So I think it's important that people understand the facts, first of all, not just knee-jerk react. Women and men, I don't want to eliminate men, women and men have worked for years to keep women healthy, not being killed in back alleys, et cetera, et cetera. And now we're going to just say, well, too bad.
Well, you'll just have to go back to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, people, women don't really want to get abortions, and it's a very difficult decision for them to have to make. And the way I feel about it is, if I know somebody who is having to make this decision, I just have to realize that I don't know what they're going through.
In all the women that I have met over the years who I have counseled and provided adoption, pregnancy, and abortion information, I have never had a woman who has said, "Oh yes, this is just exactly, it's right for me, da 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 da." Women labor over the decision. Women antagonize or agonize about what the choices they're making. I hear a lot about abortion shouldn't be birth control. Most women I know, abortion is not birth control.
Right.
It is an act that takes courage, thought. You know what? And whether I agree with your choice or not, I'm going to be right there to hold your hand. If you choose adoption, I'll be right there to hold your hand. If you choose to maintain your pregnancy, how can I help? If you choose abortion, let me help you through.
Yeah, I'm a really sensitive person, and I can usually see from, well, if it would be somebody that I knew. I've never actually had anybody come right out and tell me that they had had one. But I also realize that there are really difficult situations,
Oh.
and there are some things people are just distraught, about the situation they are in, and I just feel like, if right now I knew somebody who was having to make that choice, I would feel so bad for them. It would make me feel sad.
I would, and don't let anybody kid you, Gail. I believe that women who undergo abortions grieve.
They do. I know they do.
I really
know.
believe that because, again, it's not the ideal choice, but for some women, it's the only choice that they can use.
Well, I had a miscarriage once. When I was 10 weeks pregnant, I had a miscarriage, and I remember I went through grief for months. For months. I mean,
when I counsel, I usually ask women to follow up with therapy if they choose abortion, because
definitely.
I think that, again, there is a very distinct loss there. We as human beings, this kind of comes back to sprinkle that kindness around everywhere.
Right.
You really don't know what someone else's story is, and we're all broken, some more obviously than others. But that doesn't give me the right to sit in judgment of another woman or a couple who have to make what is the most brutal decision, I believe, of their life.
I know. It's got to be the hardest thing.
I mean, if you had to pick which of your children you were going to sacrifice, you would agonize. And I think women who face abortion also agonize. And I think couples who must face it also agonize. Everybody wants to paint the guy with a bad brush because obviously he's going to take off or whatever. Again, mind your own stuff. Don't make it more difficult.
As far as Christianity goes, even in the Bible, Jesus said something about before you remove the splinter out of one person's eye, take the log out of your own.
Yes.
Yeah.
We tend to sit. I'm not sick, guys.
Cara is wearing feminism earrings too.
Boy, these
are they heavy?
Yes, they are.
You don't wear them a lot, no.
No. Plus, as a nurse, I'm very used to only little studs or hoops because.
Well, because of all the mask wearing we've been having to do the last couple of years, most of the time, I've just been leaving this small pair of earrings in because I'm always having to, put the elastic part of the, and if you're wearing dangly earrings, then it gets all tangled up.
These don't fit in the mask. I mean, I have to put the mask on first, then put the earrings on. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm coughing.
That's okay, it happens. When you're talking a lot.
When I talk too much, I get the cough.
So, it's like being sympathetic. I mean, that's the name of the game as far as I'm concerned.
I prefer to think of it as empathetic.
Empathetic?
I don't know.
What's the difference between sympathy and empathy?
For me, sympathy it's like compassion, okay? I don't almost never use the word compassion. Compassion means I will suffer with you. So does sympathy. I believe in compassionate action and empathy. I am not suffering with you, Gail. I like you really well, but I'm not suffering with you. What I will do, however, is take whatever compassionate action you find helpful. I will not suffer with you, but if there's something I can do to help alleviate your suffering, call on me. And if that means holding your hand through a terrible time, That's what it means. I don't have the right to intervene in how you lead your life. And honestly, Gail, I don't have the expertise or anything else to intervene.
And neither does anybody else.
No. I have no idea what, just because X, Y, and Z is right for Cara, doesn't make it right for somebody else. How can we as a society be so presumptive?
As we can make, as they can feel they have the right to make those decisions for other people.
It just shocks me.
Well, anybody who would make a decision like that does not feel any empathy for the people they're making the rules about.
I'm even concerned that not only do they not feel empathy, but that they make decisions like this not based on fact.
That's true.
But instead based on opinion. And while I'm always willing to hear your opinion, I want decisions to be based on facts.
I remember my metaphysics teacher when I was younger saying something about don't let other people do your thinking for you.
Don't rent space in your head. Say absolutely do not rent space out in your head. Gail knows I'm a registered metaphysician, and in that, I often say to people, I am probably one of the most, I don't want to say indifferent, but the most hands-off person you ever met when it comes to your life. First of all, I don't feel qualified to give you advice, but secondly, or anybody else, but secondly, I don't want to assume responsibility for those choices for you, because I don't know. And so when
I know, I've had people ask me, what do you think I should do about this situation that I'm in? And it might have something to do with a health problem that they have. And I might say, well, if it was my own self, this is what I would do, but I can't make your decision for you. I remember somebody called up because I run the Chautauqua County Vegetarian Vegan Society, and I remember a woman called me up one time because she had just been diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and she was kind of looking for some advice, and I basically told her what I would do, but I said, I can't make your decision for you. And I did say, well, I have heard that they have really good success. If you decide to go the medical route, I've heard they have really good success at those Cancer Treatment of America centers. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, my sister-in-law had breast cancer and went to one.
Oh, yeah. And I've heard that a lot of people who wouldn't be expected to recover do when they go there, because they mix, along with their treatments, they mix natural therapies that help.
They're holistic centers.
Yeah, so anyway, that's what she did, and this was probably, oh gosh, a dozen years ago, I think. As far as I know, the last I knew, she was still alive, and she went there. And the last I knew, she chose to take my advice.
Cool.
I didn't tell her. I said, this, if it was me, and I did decide I wanted to go with some with some regular medical therapies, I would go there because of the combination of different kinds of therapies that you can get. And so basically she did that, and I believe she's still alive and doing quite well. Well, like a dozen or more years later.
I think that those type situations are really relevant, because if we get a choice, then we can live with the consequences of those choices. I think that, and you certainly have knowledge and expertise on the world of vegetarianism and veganism, so that, and the Cancer Treatment Centers of America do a great job with holistic treatment. So, and that's important. You can't just treat one thing. I mean, you have to treat the person. Over the years, I continue to say to folks, make your best choice. You know, as a nurse, people always want to say, will you look at this for me? Usually my standard line is, you know, I really think you should see the doc for that. But because I want to know what folks are thinking about doing, I will say, well, what are you considering? You know, what are you considering this is, or what are you considering you should do about it, or so that I hear, because if I hear them say, well, I'm going to scrape it off with a razor blade, I have heard somebody tell me that about a rash.
Really? A rash?
Yes, they were going to scrape it off with a razor blade.
Oh, my gosh.
Fortunately, I recognized what it was. It was poison ivy.
Oh, yeah.
And I said I wouldn't be scraping it with anything because there'll be a lot more of it.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, poison ivy, I have had, my husband and I have had poison ivy numerous times. I mean, we live out in the woods. And, well, somewhere along the line, we found out what the natural antidote is. So we got to where we were using that, and it works really well and everything, you know. So,
but it's all about the fact you had the choice.
Well, I sure as heck would never scrape a rash off with a razor blade. That's pretty dangerous.
I barely will scrape my registration off with a razor blade or my inspection sticker. I'm certainly not going to scrape me.
Yeah, really.
You know? But again, choice. You know, if you and I ran the world.
Did you make a suggestion to her by any chance of what she should do with the poison ivy?
No, I didn't. I suggested she see the doc.
Oh, okay.
Remember, nurses don't prescribe.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Otherwise, we have no license.
Uh-oh.
And as an herbalist, I don't prescribe because I'm a nurse. But she did take my advice and see the doc.
Oh, did she?
But what's your natural antidote while we got people?
It's called jewelweed. It's that late in the summer and early in the fall, it's that plant where it has orange flowers, and if you touch them, they explode. They call them touch-me-nots or something like that. You can kind of like make a tea out of it. And
oh, I'm a firm believer in anything that can be made into a tisane. Yeah,
because it's so relieving too. If you put it on when it's still a little on the hot side, it relieves the itching, and it's just absolutely wonderful on poison ivy.
Well, and I did have someone say to me once, it's not surprising that you're such a choice person, because after all, you're an herbalist. I said, no, this is not about selling herbs. It's about you having the right to decide for yourself. I mean, let me say this to you, I would never use commercial cough syrup.
Oh, no, it doesn't work anyway.
Well,
I mean, I can remember using it
jacks
years
my
ago,
blood sugar around and things like that.
It doesn't even work.
I'm a firm believer in elderberry syrup. So I use elderberry syrup if I have a cough. But if I give up my rights and they legislate that I can't have elderberry syrup for my cough, I'm going to be around hacking and carrying on because I won't use commercial products.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm afraid that we've come to the end of another episode.
Oh, of course we have.
Of Fresh Perspectives. And thank you for coming on again. And
I always love it.
And for those of you in the viewing audience, try to have some empathy for people who have difficult decisions to make, because they are going through a really, really hard time. And I will see you on the next episode.